Guys, welcome back to the podcast. You know, restaurants everywhere are talking about the labor shortage. Everyone is struggling with finding and keeping a great staff. Listen to this statistic. I heard recently at a big industry summit that the average tenure of a new restaurant employee is just 4 months. That means when you find this person and hire them, get them up to speed in the basics of the job, and then lose or fire them and have to replace them, it costs your restaurant somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 in lost time, lost productivity, and money every time this happens. No restaurant can afford this. Well, in this episode, we've got a solution. I'm speaking with a former governor candidate and who's now heading up the Workforce Development Committee of Hospitality, Maine. I'm also pleased to be serving on this committee, so I've got a front row seat. This is an innovative solution to this problem, no matter where your restaurant is located. So stay tuned. Before we start the podcast, I'd like to thank my friends at Cake. Cake is the point of sale built for restaurants that's easy to set up and easy to use. It's simple, intuitive, cost-friendly, and designed to meet the demands of both quick and full-serve restaurants. Cake integrates online ordering and even waitlist management. With Cake Guest Manager, your guests can put themselves on your wait list. Cake systems have actually increased guest counts by 25%. That's powerful. Support is just a phone call away. It's available 24/7, 365, and training includes Cake University. Cake is cloud-based, so you never lose contact even if the internet goes down. No wonder guest satisfaction is so high. Why not get a free demo at trycake.com/Rockstar. If you purchase Cake, you'll get $750 off activation. Now, running your restaurant can be a piece of cake. Check it out. Did you ever wonder why your place is empty, even though it's $5 burger night and your drinks are half price? You look across the street and your competitor's busy. What's going on? Well, the answer is social Wi-Fi, which uses your guest Wi-Fi as a marketing tool to increase sales. Here's how it works. When your customers log in using their cell phone, email, or social media account, you grow your database, and you can now reach these customers in seconds via text or email. Social Wi-Fi is proven marketing firepower, with open rates to 95% and conversions of 30%. That means for every 100 customers that you text, potentially 30 of these will respond to your offer, come in, and become repeat customers. That's powerful. Wi-Fi technology solutions are Techsperts. For a limited time, they're offering unlimited texts at low monthly subscription rates. They provide everything you need, full tech support, and training. See for yourself at getwifitech.com/Rockstars. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast, engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. Now, every state has its own restaurant association, and I've always been an advocate of joining the association. Today, I'm speaking with Ms. Terry Hayes, and she is the Director of Workforce Development for Maine Hospitality. Hospitality Maine. I got that backwards. Welcome to the show, Terry. How are you today?
Thank you, Roger. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I'm excited, and I know this is a topic that is really pressing right now anywhere in the country. You know, we're experiencing a labor shortage. Unemployment is very low. Restaurants everywhere are struggling with finding and keeping a great staff. So we're going to be speaking all about an innovative new program that Hospitality Maine has launched. It's all about an apprenticeship, and we think that it's got great merit in the future for all, across the country for all the different state associations. But nonetheless, the audience, the listener, is going to gain a lot from this opportunity, and it might give you some new ideas on how you can find and keep a great staff. So with that, I always start the show, Terry, with a backstory. Now, interestingly, last year you ran for governor in the state of Maine. What was that experience like for you?
It was an honor and a privilege, Roger. I've served in the legislature and served as state treasurer for 4 years prior to this, and just saw particularly workforce. I mean, Maine's challenge right now, significant challenges demographics. we have over 12,000 job openings in the state of Maine right now, and not enough people to fill them. And some of the people that we have aspire to roles that they're not trained for. So I saw workforce as the number one motivator for me, that really wanted to be Maine's governor in order to shine the light on that, so that we could both build talent within existing Mainers, but welcome folks who want to participate in our economy from around the globe as well as across the country. And so I'm an independent. I was not a member of a political party, and it truly was an honor and a privilege. It was an 18-month-long job interview with about 500,000 people. And we did it all positive, nothing, no negative ads. And it was a learning experience. I learned a lot. I'm not sure why I need to know all that at this point, but I don't regret it for a moment.
That puts it all in perspective. You had an 18-month job interview with 500,000 people making that decision. So it's pretty amazing. What an experience that was for you. But interestingly, you had a noble goal at that time that you just mentioned, and it has all come full circle now with your role at Hospitality Maine. So I think that's tremendous, because you've got so much to offer the organization, and we've come so far in just a few months with this program. Now, you and I actually attended a summit last November, a hospitality industry summit, and it was quite disconcerting for me to actually hear the statistics that the average tenure of a new restaurant employee is just 4 months. And, it's been several years since I ran restaurants, and a long, long time ago, I had this problem finding and keeping a great staff, and I was able to overcome that challenge through many innovative programs. But that statistic really struck home, and I spoke to so many different restaurant owners and general managers and operators at that summit, and the common thread was, we're hiring anyone with a pulse. If we can get anybody, we're just hiring them. And that was so alarming to me, because that clearly has a short-term, solution to a much bigger problem that's just going to, sort of come back to get you, because the guest experience is going to suffer and the quality of the service is going to suffer. And to bring this point home, when you lose somebody after hiring them and you train them, get them up to speed in the job, and then you lose that person within 4 months, and then you have to replace them, we learned that it costs the restaurant somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 in lost time, productivity, and wages. And no restaurant can afford that. So, we need a whole new approach. And that's why this approach is such a fresh perspective. So we're talking about an apprenticeship program here that has lined up employers and apprentices. And now we're finding, work study and different people going into the workplace that have existing skills, and we're developing those skills and hopefully creating long-term hospitality and restaurant employees here. So with that said, Terry, why don't you take us through, the whole program and how it began and the steps that led to the place we're at now, and, how the program's really working, if you can do that.
Sure. Well, I first should explain for your viewers that Hospitality Maine is a relatively new organization. Prior to 2018, there was the separate Restaurant Association and Industry Association in Maine. And when they merged in 2018, the top of the to-do list was challenging, was to confront this challenge around workforce development. So most of your viewers will be more interested in the line cook entry-level apprenticeship position, but there is a second track that we've developed for hospitality services in order to address exactly what you're saying in both pieces of the hospitality industry in Maine. Roger, I'd like to share my screen, if I may, and show a couple of slides to your viewers. So let's make sure I get this right. We do share, we do present, and here we go. Look at that.
Perfect.
I like to introduce what we're doing with this particular slide, because I think it puts Hospitality Maine's efforts in focus. Maine has the smallest apprenticeship program in the country. Our apprenticeship program is sanctioned by the Federal Department of Labor and is run in the Maine Department of Labor. And you'll see the numbers there on the screen. Statewide, 103 approved sponsors. Those are work sites in most instances. 44 of them don't have an apprentice at present. 25 have one apprentice, which might be exactly the right number for that business. Only 15 have 10 or more apprentices, and you'll see the largest one host is Chimbro, which is a very large construction company headquartered in Maine that services construction projects all the way up and down the East Coast. Hospitality Maine is one of the 103 sponsors with 31, now 32 different host sites. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 different tracks, line cook and hospitality services. And our goal is to register more than 30 apprentices before the end of June. Now, I want you, the overall goal is there in that bottom purple block that says building a sustainable talent supply chain for Maine's hospitality industry. Everything your viewers may not understand is that hospitality is the second largest industry by revenue generation in the state of Maine. First being healthcare, but the second is hospitality. There are only 1.3 million people who live in Maine, and we take care of, entertain, and welcome over somewhere between 30 and 37 million people a year, much of them during the high season. So this program is designed to be a feeder system that will welcome untrained individuals who have an interest in developing a career in hospitality and allow them to learn what they need to do to be successful while they're earning a living. And it creates some real loyalty, if you will, and stick-to-itiveness, so that the problem that you shared earlier of, the turnover and the churn in kitchen staff, hopefully this will help address that. That's our intent, is that the employer is making more than a wage commitment to the apprentice. Apprenticeship is one of the oldest forms of learning a trade that exist in human history. And we see it, I think it's lost its efficacy over time. And this is a resurgence and an opportunity for us to teach people the skills we need them to have for their success, and at the same time allow them to earn a living. And, we promote it here to Mainers as a career path without a college debt. I'd like to take from this slide and go to this explains how the program is set up. The Department of Labor is at the top of this diagram. At the Maine Department of Labor, when I started in early February, the concept was approved, but no portions of it were operational. And there had been some work done on the schedule of work. So what are the competencies that a line cook apprentice should have at the end of their 1-year apprenticeship, the first leg of their career path? That work had been done by a committee of volunteer restaurant members of the association, but there hadn't been anything else to make the program operational. How do we sign restaurants up? How do, what do those proprietors need to know if they're going to host an apprentice and so forth? So we put this together in February, where Hospitality Maine is in that center blue box, and everything in blue is what the association does. If you think about this, for an employer to participate directly with the Department of Labor in an apprenticeship as an apprenticeship host, there's an awful lot of bureaucracy that they would have to become familiar with and manage. And by using the association as the overall of the umbrella sponsor, I take care of the bureaucratic stuff so that the member businesses who choose to participate can focus on their real value add. We don't have an apprenticeship program without hosts that are willing to teach people on the job. So the focus was, how do we make it as easy as possible for our restaurant members who want to host one or more apprentices to do that part? What's the real value proposition that the restaurant brings to the system, and how do we clear everything as much as we can out of the way so that they can focus on doing that piece? So I've worked with the Department of Labor, helping them develop some forms that are, available online, digitally fillable, one page, get what we need. And then I take care of training the business members. Typically, so far that's been a one-on-one format. But we're going to be setting up more regional meetings to do it, in groups, if you will, come in the fall. But so my job was to figure out how to make the program operational, get it set up on our website, help with internal and external promotion, and you'll see on the right-hand side of the chart that I've listed talent sources.
I know you've spent a lot of time in the field, Terry. You've traveled across the state, speaking with people that represent these talent sources, trying to figure out, okay, how can we employ some of the people in these different, schools and Department of Corrections. So I'm glad you're talking about that now. Tell us about, what that process was like and who these talent sources are.
Well, there are some of them are working with youth. So if we're about a sustainable talent supply chain, we need to be communicating with young people in Maine that there are career opportunities in hospitality, and that they can not only earn a living but support a family in this industry, and we can help them skill up or upskill, if you will. So some of these talent sources are dealing with young people. Some of them are dealing with veterans and folks that have some experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as I said earlier, we have a limited population base, and we need everybody who can contribute to our economy to participate in it. So I know. So far, Roger, I've lived in Maine all of my life. So I've spent more than 60 years kicking around here. And with only 1.3 million folks, I know a lot of people already connected with these different talent sources. And I've reestablished those connections and introduced them to the program that we've developed. I've spoken to the young people themselves, to administrators of these different programs. And all of it is designed to, nobody, regardless of their age, can see themselves in a role that they're not aware of. So I'm trying to increase awareness of this opportunity to find folks that may be passionate about food and feeding others, and give them this opportunity should they choose to do it. So I'm out there in a broader context, making sure that all of these different potential sources of talent are aware, so that this is one of the options in front of the folks that are working there.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure you can tell us some stories. I won't ask you them, of course, but in meeting with these people, some that you know and some that you don't know, I think the support has been pretty strong, and that people immediately got, the connection between what they can help achieve by joining this program. Is that correct?
It absolutely is. They've been very welcoming. And I've learned some things that I wasn't aware of. Maine's Department of Corrections puts back into the community over 1,200 people every year. And it's in all of our best interests for those people to be to have a vocation to go to have work. And we've actually worked with the Department of Corrections to have folks who are incarcerated begin their apprenticeship while they're inside, then to do some work release. And to do that, they have to be hired by one of our members. And the idea being, if we can provide a seamless employment opportunity for them once they're released from Department of Corrections custody, they're more likely to be successful. And again, there's a commitment that an employer has made, so this individual is not out there on their own at that point in time.
Wonderful.
we've got 3 different locations that we're working on. One is up and running. The other 2 we expect to be. That's just an example. So what I find is that our interests intersect really nicely. Maine's career and technical education high schools, they want their graduates who've had some classroom training at the very least, to move on and continue to explore that career path. They can do that in this program, as I said earlier, without, a significant amount of college debt. The Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation within the Department of Labor is working with Mainers who may require some kind of accommodations in the workplace, but have something to offer that, can participate. And so we're working with some of their counselors. I'm actually doing a presentation for their statewide staff next week so that they can understand what this opportunity consists of and how some of their clients might benefit from an opportunity to apply and participate. And their needs vary, dramatically. New Mainers is pretty exciting. Maine has a relatively small immigrant community, but it's been growing. And, I've investigated some learn on the job language instruction that can really help international immigrants, participate more fully in our economy sooner. So we're all over the board, but these touch points become really important because you'll notice at the bottom, we're looking for folks to refer potential applicants back to the member businesses. And that is a particularly rewarding part of the job. And as you'll see at the top of this slide, we had a goal in February that by the end of April, we would have 30 plus member businesses signed up. At the time I made this slide, we had 31. As I said earlier, we now have 32. And now we're focused on having apprentices in each of those, at least one in each of those opportunities by the end of June.
You briefly mentioned earlier with the Department of Corrections that some of the candidates obviously had worked on the inside in the kitchens and whatnot, so they have some experience. Is that a primary requisite for an apprentice to have some basic experience before they actually take part as an apprentice? Because I know mentoring is a big part of this, and the host site in some cases needs to train and sort of monitor performance. But can you explain to the audience how much experience is either required or the people coming into the program have?
Well, it's interesting. The only requirements for the program itself, because I'm not vetting applicants. Our individual employers, our host employers, will entertain get the applications and screen the applicants. So I would say that could vary from one employer to the next.
Yes.
But the program itself, we expect individuals to be at least 16 years old. If they don't have a high school credential, then we expect them to work to acquire their high school credential as part of this program. We want them to have a passion for food. This is what motivates them to want to work in this industry. And I would say a curiosity, but prior experience is not anticipated. In fact, when hosts will take on, agree to that role, they recognize that the people that they're looking for don't necessarily don't have the skills that they need. And they know coming into it that they don't have the skills, and that learning those skills is really the focus.
Definitely.
The idea is to groom them, mentor them, teach them. This is 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, and only 145 hours of classroom time in context of a calendar year, if you think about it that way.
Right.
The bulk of the learning happens in the workplace, and I would say that our host employers recognize that they're hiring unskilled but enthusiastic, good at the soft skills. You can be here on time, you can be 100% present, you're that you're learning and you're tracking your progress, but they're not necessarily have any culinary skills before they come into the program.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key point here. It's all about the approach that the person has towards the opportunity, their personality, their passion for a career in this industry, of course, and a willingness to learn and be a reliable employee. And that's the basics right there. But I mean, you'd want to find these people all day long because that's the foundation of our business moving forward.
Right. And Roger, I want to point out before we leave this slide that
Yeah.
that I've put the high points on the member business box there on the left.
Mm-hmm.
There is, the employer is making the decision. I'm not vetting anybody or assessing them, but once the employer hires an individual and offers them the opportunity to be an apprentice, then we look at, do they have any prior learning or prior work experience? Because an apprenticeship is designed by definition to reduce the hoop jumping for both the employer and the applicant. So if they already have some of the skills, we give them credit for those skills because we don't need to teach them that. If they don't have, then we teach them, we go through the entire curriculum. So some that come, again, we want to focus on what skills they need to acquire once we're able to determine that they have some of them.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that the on-the-job hours is listed as a range from 2,000 to 4,000. We know that some people may take longer, and if the employer is committed to that, this could take up to 2 years, but we anticipate the vast majority of apprentice applicants that are hired could do the program in a 1 year full-time. Every apprenticeship provides an opportunity for at least one raise during the course of the apprenticeship, and that's determined by the individual employer at the time the program is set up. At the time the employee officially becomes an apprentice, and the certificate that a successful apprentice acquires is a national certification. It truly is a standards-based diploma, if you will, because the apprentice can show you from the schedule of work exactly what their competencies are upon completion of the program. And there's a fairly faint figure between Hospitality Maine, the work, my role as development director at a number of businesses where the education piece is listed. We anticipate we're working on curriculum with our community college system, as well as looking at we have a geographic challenge here, Roger, which is kind of fascinating. I told you before I have 32 host businesses.
That's right.
And the geography runs over 220 miles between them all, from north to south, if you will. So we're looking for some online options for portions of that classroom, of the education hours, in order to accommodate the geographic diversity of our apprenticeship pool.
This is very interesting, and I'm glad you brought up the community college piece because months ago, I went to Southern Maine Community College and I toured their culinary program and their facilities, and I saw how committed the students were. And, obviously they looked very professional. They're wearing their chef's whites, and I saw them prepping food and I saw them baking. And it was really wonderful just to see. And I know that, many of them are apprenticeship candidates. So that's a really positive thing because those people are developing their skill sets on a daily basis, and then giving them an opportunity to go into a live restaurant or a hotel operation setting and actually practice those skills is just a tremendous boost to their egos, their careers, their confidence, and their skill sets. So I think that's a tremendous piece of the program. Let me ask you, Terry, is this an ongoing program, meaning is there a start and stop time, or if the program has already started and then an employer hears about it and says, I could use an apprentice and I have a position open, can I join at any time, or do I have to wait until next year to start again? Explain how that works.
Actually, I would call it a rolling admissions, both for
rolling admissions. Okay.
Rolling admissions, both for employer host sites as well as apprentices. I mentioned before that that our hospitality industry is the second largest industry in the state of Maine. And although many of our visitors come in the high season, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, there are still, millions who come year round. So this is not something that can run on an academic calendar. We need to be prepared to welcome, if you will, the host job sites as well as apprentices year round, and that's the way it works. We're not looking for a cohort. That's why I said geographically, I can't. I couldn't even do that. We're going to make this, as we build it out, we're going to make it fit to the people who need it, which are our employers and the apprentices, and they're not all in any one geographic area in Maine.
One of the particular challenges that we have here in Maine, I mean, you mentioned how, tourism and hospitality is really number two, but it's huge and we have such a huge need for staffing. But one of the particular challenges that we have are the kids that go back to college in, late August when the season hasn't really finished yet. And suddenly, we get crushed with people starting in, mid to end of June, and tourists come into the state by the millions and millions. And then we have the high summer season. And then all of a sudden, by the end of August, employers are losing so many people that are going back to school. And now suddenly we still have to serve all these people and serve them well, but now we're at a lack of staff to adequately serve them. So I know other states have that challenge too. I'm wondering how this program may benefit, at that time where someone says, oh, I could use somebody in the kitchen now, or even a hotel. I don't want to, isolate it between restaurants because hotels have this challenge as well.
Well, we used an anticipatory calendar in setting up the program. As I said, I came on board in early February, and we were determined to be operational by the end of April. In terms of, you don't have an apprenticeship program unless you have host sites. So we needed to, we knew we had members who were enthusiastic and were looking forward to this opportunity, but we had to start there so that when we wanted to have these opportunities available, so that as May and June, when the colleges, are getting done and the high schools are getting done for the summer, that there would be opportunities for young people who wanted to pursue this. Because you don't want to hire an apprentice in August to meet the need that you just described unless you're hiring August 1st, because they're going to be at the front end, assuming that they don't have any prior experience, they're going to require some resources for the training before they can really add the value that the restaurant owner needs them to add.
Of course.
So we're looking at this with that calendar perspective, anticipating that these people who step into the apprenticeship role are not going back to college because we are their college, because the bulk of their learning is going to happen on the job. And so the academic calendar becomes irrelevant to them, okay? They're going to work straight through their downtime, and the coursework that we will have for them will be ready and available to them like at the end of October, when the crush of that has. I mean, again, we still have visitors, but it's a significantly smaller. The fire hose has been turned down a bit.
Yes, this is true.
So there's their opportunity. We will make sure that their education doesn't conflict with the high need times, on the work site, because we're recognizing that the bulk of what they're learning is happening on the job. So that really is the most important classroom, if you will, if you look at this as a systemic approach, and we need to respect that. So my expectation is that as we build this program out, we will help address the challenge you identified in your question, because the students, if you will, their primary learning environment is actually on the job, so they won't be leaving in August.
I see. When did the first apprentices actually go into the workplace and start, this program?
We signed up our first apprentice in March. In Auburn. This was a hospitality services apprentice.
Okay, yes.
Signed up our first restaurant apprentice earlier this month in May at Gather in.
Yes. I was
Okay.
speaking to the owner, Matt Chappell. We actually interviewed Matt a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and we were talking a little bit about that. And so far, it's working very well for him. Are you receiving feedback from the host businesses and from the participating, sources of talent right now on, the preliminaries and how things have gone, what's gone smoothly, and, feedback on improvement? I mean, has that been part of the program so far too?
It will be. Right now, we're really focused on making sure that there are applicants so that our
Okay.
website, have candidates to choose from. The other thing we've stressed with our members is that you identified this earlier, Roger, the churn rate. If we have a member that already has a staff person that they value but that is underskilled,
Yes.
they can offer this opportunity to an existing member of their staff. And we're encouraging them to look at it that way as a means of, again, providing the skill down the road, but at the same time generating some loyalty, because the business is making a stronger commitment to that individual by allocating resources to their training. And what we're expecting, like I said, we turned our focus at the beginning of May from signing up businesses to really generating applicants for the positions, because now I had a list. I could show people what the opportunities were. I'm wondering what I'd like to do, if it would work out okay with you, is again share my screen and poke a little bit around our website so folks can see what that looks like to a potential applicant.
Yes, please. I think it's appropriate at this time to do so.
All right, gotta put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing.
Please, thank you.
Okay, now share. And here we go. Roger, this is a Hospitality Maine's website, and there's a button on the home page. It's just hospitalitymaine.com, and this is the home page. And I click on Apprentice program here, and this is what comes up. This website is designed specifically for providing more information to the potential apprentice than it is to the employer. So we're promoting, it's an earn while you learn. As I scroll down, you'll see that the two different tracks are listed there, and yes, there are links, what are the benefits to the employee, and we want them to see, why might I want to do this? Well, look, you again, it's not costing you money, you're earning. You get a nationally recognized certification. It's a career path without student debt, increased job security, trying to point those things out. But participating restaurants, this is where, once an individual has poked around the website, this is where they can go see, well, who's looking? Where might I apply? And each of these are members of Hospitality Maine. That is the one significant requirement for a restaurant to participate. This is a member service. The association and its members, through their dues and fundraising, are paying to make this available. So we're looking for members, but you'll notice like Black Point Inn is in Scarborough, Maine, but then you've got the Bradley Inn up in New Harbor. Gather, as I indicated, that's where we have an apprentice there now.
My hometown.
Gagan's Pub is in Bangor. Now here, Governor's is a family-owned chain, in a sense, of 5 different locations. All 5 are listed. But it show you, as you see this, each of these, we have a link to the website for the restaurant.
Beautiful. Yes.
And look at how slick this is. If you want to apply at Governor's, you click on the click here and you go right down through. Oh, I want to be a cook, and they can apply right online. It's
fantastic. I mean, this is such a bridge to making the whole program work. And it's very slick how you've set this up, and very simple and easy to understand as well.
And that was our intent. There are, and so as different hosts come online, we simply add on. We're listing them alphabetically here, but we recognize if this program builds out the way we intend, and we're hoping this structure will change dramatically, and we will list geographically, like municipalities or greater Portland area, and have multiple. We won't necessarily do it because it'd be too long to scroll through a whole list. I mean, ideally, we are anticipating having as many as even 150 host sites by this time next year.
Oh, yeah, it's just going to gain momentum as word of the program spreads and the successes are shared as well.
Precisely. So, but what it's important for your viewers to understand is we're beyond, a little bit beyond launch phase.
Yes.
But part of the challenge is, again, building up acknowledgement and recognition that this opportunity exists. So we're looking at it as a pilot of 30, and trying to. I love Steve Hewins, who is the president and CEO of the association here, my boss. The way we describe this together is that we're going to skin our knees a time or two, because we're in uncharted waters, and we're learning while we're doing, and we're getting better at this as we go.
No question.
So I just wanted to show that, we've put my contact information here. Really, if there's an employer or a member business, we want them to contact me. We have put some of the forms and stuff are available. So it's just a matter of clicking through. I thought I'd show you, take just a minute and show you that the schedule of work, like what will a line cook apprentice learn?
I was interested to see this. Thank you for sharing.
Sure. Well, and this is the exact document that the Department of Labor has approved. So, an applicant can page down through this and take a look at, well, what am I going to learn? And you'll notice that the hours are listed in that first right-hand column, keeping track, because as I said, this could be anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 hours.
Right.
You'd asked me earlier about prior experience. If someone does have some prior experience, maybe their CTE program in their high school, and they come in with the correct knife technique, if you see under D, basic food preparation, then their host employer can award them time, essentially give them credit for having that skill already, so they don't have to be taught it on the job. But this goes down through the specific competencies, and then you'll see the academic anticipation, what kind of hours and what the focus will be. That, again, we're looking at the community college and some other industry providers. So,
now, this is a solid template, obviously, for the employer to follow, as well as the apprentice, to see what is going to be learned, and then those skills are going to be evaluated. Is there an opportunity for there to be a meeting of the minds between the apprentice and the host site, or the mentor at the host site, so that they mutually agree that this is what was learned and what was performed? Because, this is the business of 1,000 details, and we're often called to jump in and put out daily fires, and sometimes paperwork and documentation falls by the wayside. Unfortunately, that happens in this business. I would like to see or think that the program follows through the way it's designed to, and that the apprentice feels like they're getting a fair shake, as well as the employer. Would you say that that's true, or it's being designed to make sure that that doesn't occur?
Well, what I recently became aware of is a wonderful app that apprentices can use with their supervision provided by their mentor, or the worker assigned to them, with me as the overarching sponsor having administrative access to. It's a gem, because it tracks all of that. It tracks their on-the-job learning. It tracks it with a monthly supervision provided by, it's all done digitally. So literally the apprentice can do it on their phone. Okay.
Wonderful. And
then their supervisor has to go in and approve the monthly updates. They're logging their time. So it has a time card component. It has a competency checklist. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong thing there. We anticipate that literally within the next 2 weeks, we will be using that app with all of our apprentices and continuing to add people. But I just became aware of it. It addresses exactly the challenges you just described from the record keeping perspective. It's all done in the cloud. And it validates it and it tracks it without anybody having to worry about losing a piece of paper or, getting sauce on it, if you will. I think it's another tool that diminishes the negative impact of the bureaucracy, because there is a record keeping component of this. And it's a really good example of using technology to make that task significantly easier and organized. So the individual apprentice will get a reminder to log their hours, their time clock hours and their competencies on a weekly basis. If they don't do it, their supervisor will get a notification. It's seamless, and it will. The company is called WorkHands. WorkHands. It's out of California, and it seems to have all the things that we need. It'll even track their education, the education component pieces.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, WorkHands, and I'm right now I'm playing with it. They've set me up as an apprentice, so because I wanted to experience how it works as an apprentice, and then they're giving me access again as the supervisor. I want to make sure that when we adopt this platform for tracking, that I'm familiar enough with it that I figure if I can handle it, an apprentice can handle it.
Let me ask you a question, Terry. Let's just say we've already talked about the 2,000 required hours or on the job per se. What happens if an apprentice begins the program in one location and for whatever reason the fit isn't good, and that person thinks I could really succeed in this program if I was offered another position somewhere else, or maybe they start at a geographic location, because you mentioned that, we got 200 plus miles separating. And right now it's a bit of a stretch for me to continue to go to this location. Then all of a sudden there's somebody really close to me that I really like to work at. Can apprentices, jump around a little bit? I mean, I hate to use that term, but you know what I'm saying. Is it possible to start in one and finish in another?
It is. It is possible. And there might be multiple reasons why it would happen. And one that you hadn't mentioned is seasonality.
Okay, right.
Of restaurants and in Maine that are not open 12 months out of the year.
Correct.
So we're blessed because there has been a growing interest in outdoor winter activities in Maine. So we have folks on both ends of the spectrums, only open in the high season, and others that may only be open or do the bulk of their business during the winter. So part of what we're looking to do is collaborate, so that if we have an apprentice that starts working the high season on the coast, they could go to a participating host business on one of the mountains that are doing a ski and snowboarding and
of course,
snowmobiling. That becomes my job as the connector. If so, in seasonality, we'd set that up and know that opportunity closer to the front end. If there's a fit challenge or a life experience that requires maybe the apprentice is married and his spouse gets a new job and it's 2 counties away, the whole idea is that I would be the connector,
right,
to try to help identify. And if we didn't have a host location, who are our members in that area that might be interested in being a host location, to let them to facilitate them finishing. And I want to stress too, Roger, the competencies and the form that I showed for the line cook, that's just the entry level. We're going to be building out subsequent pieces so that a career truly is a possibility, working all the way through to possibly being, the head chef. But how long will that take? Well, we're gonna find ways. We're going to map that together with our early adopters. Like I said, this is a sustainable talent supply chain. It's not just an entry level fix.
And that's a great point you're making, because this is, of course, an industry and a business that someone can start washing dishes and become the head of a kitchen, a chef, just by learning on the job. You know, college educations aren't required. Formal training per se isn't required, but this is just a beautiful bridge to that as well. I mean, I have a particular story. My very first employee 25 years ago was a 15-year-old high school student, and he started working in our dish pit. He was a dishwasher, and within 3 weeks, he was closing our restaurant 3 nights a week, sending the credit card batch, and then he took a real interest in learning. And I kind of took him under my wing, and he stayed with us for about 15 years, starting out at age 15. And he worked his way up, and he managed 2 of my kitchens. And then when he left, he started his own restaurant. So that's what's possible in this business, and it's just inspiring. And we're talking about very similar opportunities that we're giving these apprentices to find a passion, develop a skill set, gain real hands-on experience in a real live work setting, and then just move on from there. And this job, this career, this industry can take you all over the world in just amazing places and opportunities. You know, you can become a private chef on on someone's multi-million-dollar yacht or on a cruise line and go see the world. I mean, you can go anywhere. You can work in Europe. I don't need to tell you this, but that's what really inspires me, to see a foundational program that starts at the ground level here, a real grassroots program, and the impact that we can make for both the employer and the student is, and the apprentice is just an amazing thing. And you're at the heart of that. So, kudos to you, Terry, for putting this whole thing together and for spearheading the program.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I like to say, learn here, go anywhere.
Yes, that's right.
Although in terms of the needs of our industry in Maine, we'd like you to wait a little while before you go.
Yeah, we want you to stay in this state. I shouldn't give people the wrong idea.
But at the same time, the economies ebb and flow and are impacted by a lot of things that we don't have any, individual control over. Mm-hmm. You think about it, Roger, people need to eat everywhere.
Yes.
They need to eat everywhere. Hospitality is everywhere. It takes different forms, but it's everywhere. So, it's never going to become old-fashioned.
Never.
We're going to need to eat as long as we exist as a species. So, and I think we've had, maybe as a culture, we've undervalued the skill set. And this is an opportunity to help professionalize it, to help people really see that it's, I used to say you can go to the same restaurant 7 days a week and order the same entree for 15 years, and you just still don't have the first clue on how to cook it.
This is true.
Where to source the ingredients from, how to combine them to have that experience. So, I think it gives us an opportunity to add, more professionalism to this industry as well.
Absolutely. I think you're touching on that key point. I mean, in the last, 5-10 years or so, the chef status has been elevated to such a high degree. And there's so many different cooking shows, and celebrity chefs are just known for, reality TV brought that to life. But really, this career can, turn you into a rock star in this business. And I use that term because obviously this is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast after all.
Well, it is truly, it's an art form. It's an art form.
It is.
And, just as we teach, when folks have a passion for, the visual arts, there is a methodology that we use to start them and then to upskill them over time. But we're doing that with food and food creativity and nutrition and all of it. It's exciting for me because, I've told people for years, I'm not a terribly good cook, but I'm a really good eater. And I love growing those opportunities. And,
yes,
Maine has a growing reputation as a foodie destination. And this is part of making sure that we can sustain that over time, as I said, and have that talent supply chain with enthusiasm and using the talent that's already here to teach and grow the next generation of leaders in this industry.
Definitely. You're making another good point. Maine is definitely a foodie destination that has been internationally recognized over and over again. And we have such amazing talent here in this state and just such unique restaurants of all culinary persuasions. So I don't want to spend too much focus on the culinary side. Do you want to also talk about the hospitality side a little bit as well and the lodging piece?
Sure. The curriculum for that program is more of a, I would call it more of a sampler, meaning that we want to introduce individuals that are interested in that side of the business to the various components of providing, a quality lodging experience to guests. So we're everything
Definitely.
from front desk to guest services to housekeeping to the back room, accounting, back office functions. We want them to see that it's maybe more complicated than it looks. If your only experience in the lodging industry has been as a guest, I think we may underappreciate everything that goes into the quality of that experience. So we want them to have a meaningful opportunity to experience each part of that for the in the facility where they're working, and then with an opportunity at the end of that year, then again we're going to be building out multiple, like 3 or 4 different tracks. If they want to go into, the whole guest services piece, then that'll be the next leg. If they want to do event planning and promotion, that would be another one. Groundskeeping and maintenance, which is a huge need and an entirely different skill set if you think about it.
Definitely true.
So I'm going to be working with our members who have been the early adopters, the folks that have signed up and are hosting apprentices now. When we get in, a little bit later into the calendar part of this year, I'll be turning to them to say, what do you need next? Where and building out those pieces.
Sounds like there's a bit of built-in job security here, Terry, because this can continue to move forward in so many different directions, and you're going to be instrumental in all of it.
Well, I feel like I'm a connector. I certainly don't possess the skills that even some of our entry level apprentices are going to acquire, but it's a matter of figuring out what resources do we need to bring to bear to generate the outcomes that we want, and my job is to pull those, is to ask the right questions. I love the work because I'm not expected to know the answers. It's asking the right questions and putting the right people and resources together in order to get the outcome. And so for me, it feeds me in more ways than one.
That's tremendous. Let me ask you finally, Terry, about the credential or the certificate that an apprentice receives at the completion of the program. What form is it in? Does it describe everything that the person learned throughout that period of time? And, this is something that they can take with them when they wish to move on with their career and whatnot. And it's a great, connector to that next employer to understand exactly what this person has to offer in conjunction with a resume. Does it include all of that information, or tell me about that?
Well, the certificate itself, it looks more like a diploma.
Okay.
It's a document that comes from, signed by the individual